Everybody's been waiting for coaching changes for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and though we've been saying not much is going to change, we do have one swap for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They allowed DB coach Grady Brown to walk as his contract ended at the culmination of this season, and in return, they hired Gerald Alexander, former DB coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. He comes to Pittsburgh, taking Grady Brown's spot. And another piece of news that people are probably going to be upset about as I say it, but the Steelers expect to retain offensive lines coach Pat Meyer. So one coaching change on the defensive side of the ball and one non-change that a lot of people were waiting for.
Yeah, I said when this started, I said Grady Brown was a name that would have surprised me a little bit, but I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't rule Grady Brown as an option that leaves at the end of the season. Gerald Alexander, we talked about it the other day. Fantastic hire by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm a big fan of Gerald Alexander and what he's done in the NFL. He worked with, a number of guys throughout the year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He helped Minkah become Minkah during his time here. He kept Terrell Edmunds a relevant safety for a long time out here. He helped Cam Sutton develop into a guy that went and signed a $30 million contract with the Detroit Lions. I don't care where he is right now. It's about where he was when Gerald Alexander was working with him. You get a lot of young guys like Joey Porter and Corey Trice who are going to be back here. I think it's some youth who's been waiting for this opportunity and now gets it. And I am a big fan of that hire. I think Grady Brown's a phenomenal coach, but I do think that sometimes you just, things run their course and you gotta make a change. And Gerald Alexander is a good replacement for that change. On the other side of that, I don't know. I like Pat Meyer. I think Pat Meyer is a great guy. I think he has had success. Okay. Let's not ignore some of that success because not everything's gone very well for him. Broderick is a big L right now, but Dan Moore Jr. turned out to be a pretty okay win. You have guys like Zach Frazier who he just came out booming and hasn't stopped booming since. Mason McCormick is a 4th-round rookie who has turned into something very quickly. That's impressive. That shouldn't have been the case. We were talking in May what are the expectations for Mason McCormick? There are none. He's coming from an FCS school. He's got 2 things to jump before he's ready to play in the NFL. Well, he started most of the season and didn't look bad doing so. Spencer Anderson went from a 7th-round pick to a guy that you're talking about in a year might be competing for a starting job. I think that's notable. I don't think everything's perfect. I think there was room for upside with a new addition. I'm not going to act like there wasn't. I understand the argument to keep him through what I believe is the final year of his contract. And if it is, I get where they're going with this. I do. It's been a lot of turnover in that offensive line room and a lot of turnover in the coaching staff. They've gone through since Munchak. It's just one after another, after another, after another. None of them worked out. Pat Myers at least had some good to grab onto. I get where they're going with this. It is a one and done situation here. Okay. I'm going to say this 40 times during the offseason. People are going to get really upset and tired of it. They're probably going to hate me by the end of it. I don't view the Steelers as a Super Bowl team right now. They could change my mind, but right now, February 11th, I do not view the Pittsburgh Steelers as a Super Bowl team. And therefore, if you want to make coaching moves to say we need some continuity and maybe this works out, we're going to take a chance. This is the year to do so. I think it's better to take bigger chances, but I hear where they're going, and I think there's an argument to be made for keeping Pat Meyer when, most of us, and I say us, would probably argue that it's time to move on. So I hear where they're saying there. I think the Grady Brown move does not surprise me that much. Said that from the beginning. Gerald Alexander is a phenomenal coach, and Pat Meyer, people aren't going to be happy about it, but you could make the argument. The Steelers are making the argument to why they'll keep him. And we'll see if it works out. What were your thoughts on that stuff?
If it's true that he only has 1 year remaining on his deal, then it makes a lot of sense. You look at the first 2 years that Pat Meyer was in Pittsburgh, he didn't have a lot to deal with, right? He came in and Chuks Okorafor was the right tackle. He had Mason Cole as a center for some time. So it's not like he had a lot to work with when he came in. And in those first 2 years, the offensive line got better as the season went on. Specifically in year 2, you look at last season in 2023, and the offensive line was really good late in the season. The running game was really good late in the season. So he bought himself a little bit of grace. Match that with the fact that this year you dealt with some injuries to some key names. They never really got some continuity. I think that's what bought him that final year, because they're going to look at it and say, listen, next year, you're going to bank on it being a little bit healthier. You're going to have the young guys. We need you to make these improvements. We need Mason McCormick to be a no-doubt starting guard next season. We need Troy Fautanu to hit the ground running. That's on you, Pat. We need Broderick to be fixed. That's going to be the biggest thing. If Broderick Jones has a bad year at left tackle in year 3, that's going to be the death sentence for Pat Meyer next year. But I can see why he got a little bit of grace from the organization. 1, because this is an organization that drags their feet on a lot of these types of moves. And 2, because you can put a lot of these qualifiers in front of Pat Meyer's performance this past year. There were injuries. There wasn't continuity. They are young. So now that that's going to go away a little bit more next year with a little bit more experience and hopefully a cleaner bill of health, it's going to be up to Pat Meyer to earn his next deal next season. I think all of the previous 3 and all these excuses, if you, for lack of a better term, excuses that you can put behind Pat Meyer, they go away. That's what bought him next year. And now next year, he's going to be evaluated solely based on what happens in 2025.
100% agree. 100% agree. That's how it should be. That's how it will be. And you could look at Grady Brown as a prime example of that. You know, you had every excuse in the book as to why it wasn't going well. And again, I think Grady Brown's a good coach, but you had every excuse in the book as to why it wasn't going well. Patrick Peterson, injuries, Minka's going down, DeMonte KZ suspended, Joey Porter's a rookie. All right, cool. We're putting everything on 2025 or 2024. 2024 wasn't impressive. It was actually the complete opposite of impressive, because you had Deshaun Elliott being a stud and everybody else was like, they don't really look that good. Not even Minka, not Joey. Dante Jackson started hot, got real bad by the end because of injuries. And they just said that, look at, dude, this was your tryout and you have to earn it. And you didn't earn it. And I agree with you. I think that's what 2025 looks like for Pat Meyer. So we'll see what happens. I get a lot of people aren't upset about it, but at the end of the day, are upset about it. But at the end of the day, we don't get to make these decisions. You know, we just get to feel a certain way about them. Nobody was hoping that this happened. There's an argument to be made as to why it did happen. And I think you have to acknowledge that in the same sentence of saying, this is my opinion, and my opinion is it's a bad move. So I hear what they're saying.